lot of times I felt like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Sales is going in such an amazing direction. It's a journey. It always will be for me, just continuously learning. I just never thought that I could do sales.
Welcome back to the Sound of Sales. In this episode, I invited Crystal, who started in sales for the glorious income, but quickly discovered her passion for the trade. She's a lone wolf with a drive to turn chaos into scalable processes. Enjoy this conversation with an amazing female leader. Do you have a husband or do you have children maybe?
I do. So I actually have both. I have 3 children. My oldest is 21. He just turned 21. And my middle, he's my boy. And then my middle is my daughter, and she is 15. She is about a week away from getting her driver's permit, so that's exciting. And then my baby is my 9-year-old, and he's my boy, another boy. So I've got boy, girl, boy. And they're, each 6 years, about 6 years apart. And totally planned it that way. I was like, I'm not the mom that is able to have like 2 in diapers at the same time. And, no. So my role was just kind of like, okay, if they can, if as soon as they can make themselves like a bowl of cereal and like be somewhat functional on their own, then okay, it's cool that I can do another one. So yeah, because I was just, and trust me, I have so much respect and admiration for those moms that keep it together, and understandably they're not keeping it together all the time, but they can keep it together for the most part, and they're doing a fantastic job, and they have little ones. That's just crazy to me, but yeah, so I do have a husband and have 3 children.
Awesome. So if your 9-year-old would be on the call right now and I ask him, what does mommy do for a living? What would he reply?
I have no clue what he would say. That's so funny. He's such a quirky kid too, and that makes it even doubly hard, knowing what he would say. But I think he would probably say something along the lines of like, she's in meetings on the computer, or he would probably say something like that, because it seems like the only time like I don't ever let him in my office is when I am in a meeting, and so that's probably what he thinks I do for my job. Yeah, so I would get something like that.
He would think your job is super boring. Yeah, you have always on the computer, always talking to people, and like that's life.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. But I read on your LinkedIn that you started in sales because it was a glorious income.
Yeah. So
Can
I
you
got
take
in.
me back to those days?
Yeah. So it was, I was one of those women that I was like, no way, I'm not a salesperson. I could never be a salesperson. My brother and my dad, they were both in sales, and they were like, and I've always been an outgoing person, but I just never thought that I could do sales, because it's like, kind of back then you thought of sales as sort of like, constant rejection, and like, I don't know if I can handle that kind of rejection, constantly. So I ended up getting into sales, and I would say that, so the first official sales role, I guess, was uh, working for monster.com. So I am totally dating myself here, but the job board, right? So our customers were, businesses, and they were looking to, sorry, my camera moves.
No, it's all right.
And so, these organizations would, they were hiring, and so they needed to purchase job postings, or they needed to purchase like our resume database to where they could actually search for resumes for their open positions, and and there were a host of other products. So I started out in sort of like a BDR role. It's definitely not the type of BDR role that what it looks like today, but it was very similar. And then, I worked my way through the sales path and, inside sales, eventually becoming, a field seller, enterprise, organizations. And then I moved around a little bit from, company to company. Um, and after I had done enterprise sales for a few years, I was like, I'm burnt. I want to try something else. I knew I wanted to stay close to sales though. That I knew. I just didn't. At that point, I was like, I don't think that I want to, manage my own team. I was, and I still sort of am. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I can totally be a team player, but at the same time, I am sort of like a lone type wolf, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem working alone. And so that's kind of how I was. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to manage a team. That's just not, I don't want to. At that time, I was like, I don't want to be a babysitter. I don't want to have to do that. So sales enablement was something that was just starting to kind of come out, right? And it's definitely not even what it looks like nothing like what it looks like today. It was basically, like training. That's really about it, right?
The old school
And kind
definition
of
of
doing
sales
some,
enablement.
yeah, and then doing some odd sort of things that don't even resemble sales enablement today. But from what I saw in the job description, because I started looking, I was like, okay, well, they want people with a ton of sales experience, and that I have, and so I eventually I took that role. And it was for Cisco systems, and Cisco's this massive organization, right? And so I learned about a lot of different things at Cisco. Mostly they already had processes, right? They already had sort of this machine built. And yes, they're even at that time they were still trying to figure out what this whole sales enablement thing was, but a lot of their content and how they trained their sales reps, it was already pretty good. So I didn't have to do, there wasn't much building there. It was more refining and then just continuing to follow the processes that were already in place. So that was really good. And then I started, kind of moving around with enablement. I tried some sort of mid-sized companies, and then I tried some very early stage startup, companies. And what I sort of settled on is I'm a builder. I love to build, things that just are not there, that are chaotic. I love to, take the chaos and really, bring it into something that's like absolutely beautiful, process frameworks, all of that. And so that for me meant, kind of more of an early stage, startup. And so that's, I started doing sales enablement for early stage startups, but it wasn't totally sales enablement because that's the thing is early stage startups, they only have a few AEs. So they don't need like, someone to come in and build processes, obviously for like 1,000 people. But what I love about it is that I can come in, build these processes that are scalable, right? And so as the organization grows, it's my frameworks and my processes that are allowing for this scalability to happen. So it's, that's what I found my sweet spot. And sort of now with Second Nature, I am doing, I've done sales enablement. And so now I'm doing kind of customer enablement. So
Yeah.
there are some traditional elements of customer success in my role. However, I'm also building out our internal processes, right? Sales to sort of CS handoffs. Also, not just, internal, but also external, the whole, onboarding experience,
Yeah.
creating what this looks like because they just didn't have it. They don't have it. And it's, it's not, it's just where they're at in their stage. And so I'm getting to build all of this really cool stuff out. And, I'm getting the CS experience under my belt, which I absolutely love. Because really, sales enablement it's, it's going to eventually fall under the revenue enablement, right? Umbrella. So it's like if you don't have, the CS experience as well, you're going to find yourself sort of just being able to do sales enablement under revenue enablement. So I wanted to be able to do both, because eventually I'd love to lead my own revenue enablement team. But I needed CS too. So I'm getting a lot of that at Second Nature, getting to build there. It's this early stage Israeli startup. And then the fact that, Israeli companies just in general they don't have a sales, well, I'm not going to say they don't have sales enablement teams, but there's only a few. There's literally two enablers I know in the entire country of Israel. And, and they're like such a massive tech hub, as far as startups. And I know two enablers. So that was another thing that was really, pushing me to Second Nature, is that I had the opportunity to really bring sales enablement
To the
to
market.
Israeli startups. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's kind of my, start to current state
Yeah,
where I'm
it's
at
great.
now.
It's a nice journey. Like I saw that you yeah, customer enabler or customer enablement. I had never heard of the term, but if you come to think about it, it makes a lot of sense that you take your practice from sales enablement and bring it to other parts of the business. It makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense because at the end of the day, you can enable your sales team as much as you want. If you forget about your customer and they don't have the right experience once they signed up, then you need to worry about churn.
Yeah. Like there's only so much you can do. And, if you're working, completely with your customers, or I mean, sorry, with your sales reps. And so another really great thing about Second Nature is that our target persona, is actually sales enablement leaders. So our sales reps, they're talking to sales enablers. And that was a big part of why I was brought in also, was because not only do I lead sort of the post sale, and the onboarding and the account management piece, but I'm also brought into sales calls. Like our AEs will be like, Crystal, I have this call, with X customer, and there's going to be 5 sales enablement people on this call. Can you join me? And it's because I have done this. I speak their language. I know exactly what it is that they're trying to accomplish and the goals that they're trying to meet. And what their pain is and their challenges, and how how I can help, right? Because that's a big selling point for our AEs, is that like, hey, we actually have a sales enabler that is going to be leading you through your entire
Yeah,
customer experience.
speaking
So
your
that's,
language.
that's a big selling point for a lot of people, especially in
Hmm.
sales enablement. Like, oh, okay, well, someone who knows exactly what I'm trying to do, and they're going to walk me through this entire process. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. It's so invaluable to have that expert wisdom as well. Like it makes the company more of a thought leader in the space when
Yep.
you have that person in your team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of organizations are starting to go this way. I was actually, oh gosh, Carl, his name's Carl Ferreira, and he's a director, I think, of sales at Refine Labs now. And he's fantastic, just amazing guy with such great advice and insights. And he was talking about just that very thing, the other day, about, that um, your organizations need to now have sort of industry SMEs, right, as part of, not only for your sales reps, but CS and sales engineers. Like, it's important to have a mixture, right, with true SMEs, that completely understand, your customer, not just from a learning perspective, but like they've done it, right? They've done that role. And it is hard to find, right? With some organizations, you're going to have to pay a pretty, penny for that in some situations. Um, But to me, it's completely worth it. It's completely worth it, because when you have somebody who has done exactly what your target persona has done, that peer to peer, experience and
Yeah.
knowledge that can be shared across is just like, that's, you don't get that. And I think that's the direction that a lot of teams are going to start going to. He was really surprised to hear that we had sort of already done that with my role, and we're still trying to figure it out, right? Like, how do we best make this play out, right? But orgs are starting to do that. They're starting to go that direction with having SMEs, in different parts of the company. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that I used the word on a different episode, that sales is becoming human to human. It's really about how can you help me perform better, and if you don't have that knowledge in the house, you can still try to sell, but it's going to be a whole different conversation if you speak in the same language.
yeah, totally. That's what we found as well, is that it's a different You're right. It's a completely different conversation between, like, hey, I have done this before. Here's truly I have, and here's what I've done. Let me send you a template that I used. I've done that with some of our customers, like, who are, and it's sometimes it's completely unrelated to second nature. It could be like, yeah, I'm struggling with, this new onboarding that we're, putting together. I need some, ideas. I don't know where to go, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, hey, let me send you a template that I used when I put together, an onboarding program for, when I used to work at this organization.
Yep.
And I just send it over. It's like, I mean, it's a different kind of value, right? But they're
But it's
gonna,
value.
yeah, it's total value. So yeah.
That's what you're remembered by, and they will remember, like, I got this from Crystal at Second Nature, and this is what she's doing right now, and this is what they are offering. And yeah, the name is in the game.
Yeah.
It's top of mind.
Yep, I agree.
And like, you did the whole journey in sales. Who do you look up to? Like, who made you who you are today?
Oh gosh, there's so many that are, that have kind of gone along the way. So for me personally, goodness, I would say, so first, to really sort of start out, is I played softball in college, and I had always been an athlete. I had, just gone from, I started playing softball, truly competitively when I was like 8 years old. And so all year round, this wasn't, a thing where you were only did it 2 months out of the year, and, every season. And no, this was literally like year round. We would travel around the country and play, and it was a huge investment, and it was an amazing experience. And so, as I got older, and I was done playing, I was like, this has been, you know, uh, like, there's so many different aspects of being an athlete that I can tie into my professional sort of life, right? Where I
Mhm.
can say, wow, that this really taught me how to do this. Because some people would, like, I have this, ability to be very hyper focused on what I'm working on. And, a lot of people who are close to me are like, well, I that's an amazing ability that you have. And it's, and I remember when they first started bringing it up, I was like, yeah, where, like, that's weird, but then I thought about it, and I was like, it's totally from playing. Like, it's from
Yeah.
softball. Like, I had to be hyper focused. I didn't have an option of, taking my focus away from what I was doing, because I was managing, school and my grades, and I was managing, performing at a high level, taking care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally. We had all of those things that we had to worry about. And so I had to be very hyper focused on it. And I think a lot of just those little things have carried forward. And so I would say that, that was probably the first thing, right? And then, the first sales job that I had ever had, I had the sales manager who, he and I became amazing friends, just just I absolutely adore him. I still talk to him occasionally. We're both, super busy. He's a VP of, it is something in sales, but it's not VP of sales. It is something a little bit different. But he works for, the company is called BTS, and so they're a consulting, a learning, I think, and development consulting company. So he really set me on a path of believing in myself, that it is something that I could do. And he tried, so many different ways with me to get me to, be a more effective seller. And, I think that's sort of what set me on the path, I think, to believing in myself. And then, once I really started, and then there's been people kind of, I think, maybe not as impactful, but have definitely helped me. And then, more recently, um, I joined the Trust Enablement group, and John Moore actually leads that group. But I met a lot of amazing enablers in that group as well. Adriana Romero was one of them that I met early on. And we just instantly clicked, and I learned so much from her. And then John, of course, John, Moore, he has been just, uh, there for me every step of the way, being super encouraging. Any questions that I have, he's there. I think, gosh, I mean, there's so many that have really impacted me, in smaller ways, um, but yeah, I would say those are the few that I can think of that have been, pretty impactful for me.
Is it something that you had difficulties with the motivation? You said at some point you felt burnt as well. Um, do you were you actively surrounding yourself with people that like the vibe of these people is good, they know how to lift me up? Were you actively, was that something that you realized that you needed at that point?
Yes. So, I think with when I got into sales enablement, because I got in when I did, it was still something that wasn't clearly defined. And,
Mm-hmm.
when you have something that isn't structured, it can be difficult to feel structured, right? To feel like you're in control, when there is nothing that is in your control. And so, a lot of times I felt like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I wonder, is this something that I can do? And it was really, I found Adriana first. And so Adriana, just, I loved what she was doing. I was seeing her all the time on, just different podcasts and doing different, events, and I would listen to her, and I'm like, this is it. Like, she's so my vibe right now. And so I learned a lot from her in just her content, but then she and I connected on a more personal level. And then I sort of, I looked up to her, is what the best way that I could say it. I looked up to her, and, so she motivated me by just doing her, right? By being her, I was motivated by that. So it wasn't like she had to come out and, try to encourage me. But that's, I was taking the bull by the horns, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find people that are doing this, that have, already made some really big, changes and impact on their organizations. I'm going to find out how they did it. And so, that's sort of how I came across Adriana. But, I think that's how I'm motivated. I'm motivated by seeing other success.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it allows for me to sort of take a step back and think about my own path and how I can get there. And then I sort of, after I started following all kinds of enablers, and loving little things that they were doing here and there, I finally took a step back, and I was like, there are unique things that I have, and that I need to start sharing that and doing those things. And so, I sort of started branding myself a little bit more. And, I'm a co-host of a podcast now, and, with an AE that works at Second Nature. And, just started writing articles and doing, as many sort of interviews as I could. And because I love it, I love talking about enablement and, just sort of the whole journey. But then I have my Instagram, my enabler Instagram. So I started doing all kinds of little things and just being myself. And so now at this point, I am definitely still trying to fit, follow people that are really strong in what I'm not. And it's just a journey. It always will be for me, just continuously learning, staying on top of what's changing. But at the same time, I'm old enough to know, where I want to go, what I want to do with, with sort of my life and enablement. So yeah, I mean, long-winded, but I'm motivated a little bit differently, I think, than some people.
Yeah, but I can recognize some patterns in it that I noticed by myself as well. Well, as a tap on the shoulder, somebody referred me to you, so there's definitely a ring to you. So
Nice,
your
nice.
your
That's
your
oh,
brand
it
is
was it
working out.
Malvina?
Yeah, it was Malvina. Yeah.
Yes, oh my gosh, that girl. I love her. She has such like such a warm, like like she just like glows. And like I follow her too on Instagram, and so I always see like her pictures. And I love that, right? I absolutely loved seeing her success. And like her, I was a part of her her podcast. And um she's so good. She's one of the good ones for sure.
Do you notice that your thought leadership, to call it that way, your personal brand is starting to work for you?
I think people are starting to, associate the face with, because my sort of handle on Instagram is called Your Favorite Enabler. And so a lot of times that's kind of how I'll introduce myself. And, a lot of it is just continuously putting it out there, right? And then
Hmm.
eventually people will start to connect the face with that. And I feel like it is. I have so many different interests, and I probably shouldn't be giving advice on any of this, because like
Go ahead.
I am just everywhere. Like I mean, I'm not totally crazy like everywhere. I try to keep things like on brand, if you will, but shit, like I am on like I have so many things that are on brand. So it's like I just like whatever. I try to stay in a single path. But a lot of times I'm all about, obviously sales enablement. But being a minority woman, I am also all about DEI. I am, for women, women's rights. In fact, I just posted today. I don't know if you saw it, but so I get a lot of, I get at least twice a month. I would say sometimes more. But I would say around twice a month, I get messages from men on LinkedIn that are
I was
constant.
about to ask something about that. I saw
Yeah,
it.
where I get like I mean that one was, somewhat like mild. I mean, like, where it could have come across as like, oh, he's just being nice. Like he's just giving you a compliment. Like whatever. I mean, I've had some who were like I actually got proposed to through LinkedIn. This man from I don't even know where he was from, but literally said, "Will you marry me?" First time he had ever DM'd me, literally, like the first time that was his first sentence. And then I get them all the time, like, "Oh, you're my thank you for connecting. You're my very special friend now, and like, when can we talk?"
Wow.
I am not kidding. Like it is just like it is absolutely ridiculous. But I so, and for the longest time, this has been happening for probably a solid year now. But for the longest time, I was always like, oh God, just, I always felt like if I outed them or if I made a big deal out of it, that I was the one being unprofessional. Like, oh, just, like, I would always sort of think about like people saying, oh, just, move on, right? If you don't like it, just delete it, just block them and then move on. Like, no, like eventually I got to a point where I was like, no, that is not enough. Like
Hmm.
that is completely dismissive of their behavior. And I am not doing anything wrong here. Like it's their behavior. And so last time it happened, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to, the next person that does this, woe to them. However, I'm going to post it. I'm going to screenshot our conversation. I'm going to tag the organization that they work for. And I'm going to call this person out. And because I'm sick and tired of it. I am sick and tired of it. It's
Yeah.
like, uh, where would you ever think that it is okay to message a woman commenting about her appearance on a professional platform, right? And
Any
I mean,
platform.
to be honest, it's not okay anywhere, but I get why people do it on other platforms. But it's like you have access to my profile, which literally has mounds of content that I have built, that I have put, my brain and my soul into these things, right? And I have done interviews and tried to give as much back to the enablement community as possible. My mentorship, things that I do. I'm very big on volunteer opportunities, DEI, women's initiatives, and like all of that is on my profile. So it's like if the only thing that you can find is to message me about my appearance, like,
Yeah.
wow, really? Like what you're telling me is that you are literally too dumb, or you just do not give a shit about finding something on my profile, and you are brazen enough to just assume that I would be like, oh, thanks, I love it, thank you for saying, like,
Yeah, indeed.
no, that is not okay. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick of it. And so I was like, well, and I tagged the organization that he worked for, and I strongly encouraged them to get some courses and certifications happening for sexual harassment, how to sensitivity training, and really how to leverage your network on LinkedIn, because
Yeah.
that is not it. And I can guarantee you, if it's happening on LinkedIn, on a platform that he can hide behind, social media, it is absolutely happening internally as well.
Yeah.
So figure that out, man. Figure that out. Because
Wow.
I'm not the one to help him figure it out. I am the one to out him so you can figure it out. And honestly, it was just like I was just done with it. So I'm very big on stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's something that's like serious. Did you notice
Yeah.
it in with other female colleagues or someone that it also happens in the sales process that people like literally say like, if you date me, I'm gonna buy, like straight up that type of situation.
Yeah. It's like it's really like it's sad. It's sad, and
Hmm.
like it just says so much about the person who's doing it, it really does.
Yeah.
Like that, they just couldn't even figure out a way to engage with you other than commenting on your appearance.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess that works for some women. Maybe that they just figure all women are the same in that regard, um, but yeah, and I just feel like a lot of women get that. Last time I posted something about this, there were so many women who reached out, and they were like, thank you so much for bringing this up. Sometimes it becomes annoying, and if a woman wants to completely ignore it and just move on, cool. Like that's your thing. Like you deal with it in the way that you want to deal with it. I personally feel like the only time something is going to change is if you hit them really where it hurts, and
Hmm.
that is exposing them, and making them feel embarrassed for their
Yeah.
behavior. Like, because by ignoring it and then just blocking them and moving on, they're never going to be embarrassed. They're never going to feel how they have made you feel by basically saying anything that you've done, anything that you've created, any of your accomplishments are completely, you know, hidden because of the fact that you're attractive. Like, wow, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just hope that more women are comfortable and confident enough to be able to start doing more stuff like that.
Yeah, it's about to speak up, and I think for other women it can be a way that it might actually hurt them, that they don't know what to do in a situation like that, and that it's has a different effect. Yeah, like you are strong enough, you speak up, you decide like I'm gonna do this, but I don't think there are a lot of women that well, I think it's changing, and it should change the
Yes.
way that people speak up about stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope even if there's one person who sees it and is like, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start bringing it. Then I consider that a huge, huge. I mean, I consider it a win already because I was, brave enough and I did overcome those voices in my head that have told me in the past, like, don't do this. This is just an unprofessional response. Don't
Yeah.
respond this way. Don't, I honestly, I had to overcome that even in this situation. I would, the voice in my head was like, are you doing the right thing? Is this really what you want for, you've really started building out, your favorite enabler? Like, do you want this as
Yeah.
part of that? And honestly, it was like, yeah, I do. That is absolutely part of who I am. There's this whole new, you know, uh, uh, personal sort of professionalism that is happening, and it's taking a much more holistic view of people, and not just their professional career. It's like there's so much that makes them who they are, and that's professional is only one aspect of that. And I think with the pandemic, I think it's something really great that came out of that is that people are starting to see, um, that it's not just about career. It's about what is fueling that career, right? What's happening at home, that's important. We want to get to the place where we are not burning people out, where we are making sure that whatever it is that they value, that the organization is providing in some capacity. And so a lot of those lines have really been crossed, and I want to make sure that women are feeling empowered maybe to do things like I did, and that is part of my brand. That is part of my professional career.
Yeah, and what you say about COVID, like it changed the way that people are doing sales. Like it's a lot more people are building these brands. A lot more people have realized like if I sit alone in my working from home desk, like I can do more with what I have at my disposal. It drastically changed the way people are selling and the way people are buying. There's a lot written about the future of sales, but like yeah, VR is coming along, and then more and more
Hmm.
tools. Like if I look at Second Nature, it's a tool that is awesome for remote learning
Yeah.
and training your people. Like it's
It
one way of
really
looking at
is.
it.
Yeah. It's going, I mean, it's sales is going in such an amazing direction.
Hmm.
I always tell people like about a year and a half ago, right when the pandemic kind of started, I got a call from a sales guy from like a BDR. And no, so yes, so I had downloaded a white paper. So I knew it was coming, right? I
Yeah.
knew the call was coming at some point. And so I was on vacation, and I it was in the morning, right? It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, and so I answered, and I didn't know who exactly it was, but he was like, "Hey, Crystal, this is Ben from God, what was the organization? I can't remember now." But all I remember is Ben because it was so good. And so he called and he's like, "This is Ben from blah blah blah." He's like, "I'm calling you because you downloaded this white paper." He goes, "I know you were probably really, hesitant to do that because you knew a sales call was coming." And he goes, "But," he goes, like, "before we get into all of that," he's like, He's like, I gotta tell you, my morning's starting out pretty slow, and kind of bummed. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, do me a favor. He's like, just please tell me something good. Tell me something good. And I was like, hmm, okay. Did kind of stop me in my tracks a little bit, right? And like I was walking around, I was on vacation and I was in the kitchen, and we had rented a cabin, and so I was walking around in the kitchen, and I was like, huh. I was like, well, and then I ended up kind of telling him something good. I think I told him something about being on vacation, and we had just gone like jet skiing or something, and he was like, oh, that is good. And so we just started just really kind of talking about good things, right? And then eventually, after just a few minutes, I was getting ready to tell him like, oh, I can't talk right now, Ben. Like, I can't talk. I gotta go. I'm on vacation. But because he'd said that, it really got my mind in a
He
completely
got you.
different place, and it shifted, and all because like tell me something good. At the start of the pandemic, we all needed to hear something good, right? We were all like, oh my gosh, what is this, what's happening? And so he found something that like human beings have in common, right, at that
Hmm.
time. And it was like, I need to hear something good. I'm that type of person too, like tell me something amazing. And so we ended up having a long conversation, and it was really good, and much longer than I'm sure that he thought we were going to have. But it was all because he approached me in a very human way, and found something that both of us totally really could resonate with. Not in a way like, hey, I noticed that we have three people in common, like
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. Like, I mean, he found something that truly was like an emotional kind of trigger for me. Because I mean, right at the start of the pandemic, it was like everything was kind of unknown, right? But yeah, so I'm all about finding those human connections, especially in sales.
Human to human. I think I'm
Yep.
gonna put it on a t-shirt.
You should.
Human to human. That's what it's all about.
Agreed. Make that
How do,
t-shirt. I'll buy your first one.
okay. But how do you think it will evolve from here? Like in the next couple of years?
Sales. Gosh, I think I think with the evolution of enablement, um, I think that I think the processors are going to become much more, the processes are going to really become like super, super tight and automated, right? Everything is going to be done that way. I think we're going to try to, sales, I think, is going to become much more in tune and used to doing certain things that normally have some human interaction.
Hmm.
AI is going to play a big part in that. However, there is the human interaction is never going to go away. Um, an email will never be the only way of communicating with a prospect. Picking up the phone is still, I feel like it's absolutely not going away ever, because it's just I that human interaction is just too important. And um but I think AI is going to replace some
Yeah.
interaction, mostly in a way of training, right? I think or coaching, practicing. Again, I still think it's super important for a sales manager to coach, one on one. But instead of, doing it 3 times a week, which really kind of should be happening, it's going to be one time, right, per week, or even once every 2 weeks, because AI can supplement the rest, right? But there still has to be some.
Yeah, and AI has more knowledge than the capabilities of that one sales manager. like it's
Exactly.
trained model over so many sales managers and causes and cases, that it will outsmart the sales manager at some point.
Yeah, it removes human bias too, and that's a big one. One thing that we're doing for one of our larger customers is we're putting together simulations around bias training. And when you, as a sales manager or as an HR person, or even as like a recruiter in talent acquisition, there are certain situations where you have to be very careful with the way that you word things and the way that you say things and you come across, and even your own personal biases, right? Everyone has biases. If you're human, you have bias. So we're putting together these simulations that are helping them to practice with Jenny, who is our AI sales coach, and they are practicing with her to have the best conversation that they possibly can in those really difficult situations. And they get scored on it. They get told like, hey, try it this way. And it's all done, and it's not a monologue. You're literally communicating with Jenny, and Jenny's talking back to you, and she's giving you just different things
It's
to
crazy.
kind of think about. And it's pretty amazing. One of our customers, they just had this massive sales kickoff, and Second Nature was a big part of it. And in 24 hours, they had new marketing messaging that they just rolled out in their sales kickoff, and so they wanted for people to become certified in this new messaging. And within 24 hours, we were able to certify 1,000 sales reps in that new messaging within 24 hours.
Crazy.
And so some of them had to practice it more than others. But they, within 24 hours, we certified 1,000 sales reps. So
That's a
it's,
huge return on investment.
yeah. Yeah. Within 24 hours, like we were able to certify their reps. So that is scalability, right?
Yeah.
But again, when they get back to after SCO, they can still have one-on-one conversations with their manager, which I think is still super important. But there is no way that any
Hmm.
organization can claim that they can certify 1,000 sales reps in 24 hours by doing one-to-one coaching.
Yeah,
Not
and
gonna
it
happen.
becomes more, the manager becomes more of a coach at that point, where they can give more information and more in-depth information, where the basics are being taught by a system,
Yes.
essentially at each one's learning pace, where the manager can be more human. With them.
Exactly, exactly. So it's pretty amazing. We can do not only new messaging, but objection handling, elevator pitches, discovery. There's two-way Q&A abilities. It's just amazing and we joke because we have our American team, and then we have our Israeli team. So sometimes Jenny, she pulls like little attitudes like every other day or something with people, when you go in, and she'll kind of give some like sassiness and like and like just like throw major curveballs. So when that happens, we call her Israeli Jenny. And then when she's super nice and like sweet and like polite, that we call her American Jenny. And sometimes she gets crazy after like 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we called that one Happy Hour Jenny. So it's so funny, like Zoom's a really big customer of ours, and they have literally rolled her out and introduced her as a part of their sales enablement team. Mike Fisher,
Awesome.
he's a huge advocate of Second Nature, and he's the one who really owns Jenny internally. And he rolled her out like she was, part of an extra person on their enablement team. And they have had such amazing success with Second Nature. So they're kind of like our pillar of like, this is exactly how you do Second
Yeah.
Nature internally with your organization. But yeah, so it is kind of funny. We have different names for her. We have
That's
Israeli
pretty
Jenny,
cool.
American Jenny, and Happy Hour Jenny.
That's pretty cool. I'm curious to see what Jenny is like.
I know she's great. I'm telling you, she really, for the most part, she's American Jenny. But every once in a while, she'll throw something in there, and you're like, God, wow, where did that come from, Jenny? You know? But yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's pretty awesome. As a last question for you, if I could give you a billboard at the side of a highway, what would you put on it?
Oh, that's so good. Oh gosh, in addition to like my enablement journey, I've actually lost since 2000 and goodness, since 2010. I was at my heaviest. I ended up losing like right around 100 pounds, and over the course of a few years, and so I also started running. I'm running a marathon in December, so I've always been, and I'm a very sort of free type of, spirit, if you will. And I'm always going for different experiences and different, just not ever settling, right? And that's a big thing to me. And that's something that I try to get across to my children as well. If I could give them, one thing, it would be to never settle. And that, settling is, not just in your personal life, right? Your relationships, but, settling for what other people might be telling you, or what you've conditioned yourself to believe that is your sort of max,
Mhm.
ability, and, to not put caps on that. So I honestly believe that settling and mediocrity are the silent killers of the human soul. And so I would probably put that on there. That's kind of, yeah, that at the core of who I am, that is definitely it. That, settling and mediocrity will kill the human spirit over time. Every time.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I like the ring of it. Yep.
Thank you. That's what I would do.
Awesome. Well, Crystal, with these words, I would like to thank you for joining me on the Sound of Sales.
Absolutely. It was awesome. I love doing it.